Hey guys, my name is Akshita. I'm a data analyst and a travel enthusiast.
I'm Anagh. I'm a finance bro and a tech geek. And you're listening to The Why Coordinate, the weekly podcast where we discuss the why behind human society and behavior.
Lessons from pop culture and our own experiences to lead a more intentional, efficient, and happy life.
Hi Akshita, how are you?
Hi, Anagh. I'm doing well-ish. I wouldn't say great. I'm doing well. How about you?
Uh, I'm doing well. Just been very busy this week. So
No
I
worries.
guess I let's move on to introducing our guest for today. I'm very excited for introducing our guest. She, in fact, is more of a veteran when it comes to podcasts than either of us. She's been doing
Very true.
podcasts for longer than the two of us have been combined. So it's I'm very excited to introduce Mavis Wang. Mavis, or would you like to introduce yourself and welcome to the Y Coordinate?
Hi guys, it's so nice to join you on the Y coordinate, and it's a great opportunity to connect with you guys, even though we had this COVID thing going on. So I feel really excited to meet you guys across the internet. And my name is Mavis, and my Chinese name, I'm actually Chinese, and my Chinese name is Mohan. And people on Chinese social network, most of the times they call me Hu Hu because that's sort of like a nickname. And I consider myself as a entrepreneur because I'm running a small studio in Beijing. And in my part-time, I'm also a podcaster. So I have a podcast named Casticle, basically recommending different great episodes of English podcasts to bilingual listeners in China. So that's me.
Oh, we're welcome, Mohan. We're really excited to have you and finally have someone who has some experience with podcasts. uh, okay, so let's introduce the topic for today. And the topic you've picked is extremely exciting, and I feel like we have a very opposing views on this. So the topic for today is what would you choose between wanting to do something versus having to do something?
Mm.
So before we start debating on this, Mon, would you want to kind of elaborate by what we mean by this topic, want to versus have to?
So I guess it's just like a question about people's motivation. So basically, I understand the topic as in want to versus have to from the perspective of personal motivation, because basically, I think when I look back to basically all the decisions that I have made in my life, I
Mhm.
think I just made every single decision based on my own motivation. So basically, you just feel super excited, or I feel super excited to choose this topic because I want to pinpoint the very importance of personal motivation. But I don't know whether you guys think of this topic. How would you want to approach this topic? Like from which angle, from which perspective?
Okay, so I I agree with you on the motivation aspect of it. So when I wrote down this topic, my thought was that when you talk about like I if it's a spectrum of on one side there is wanting to do something, like for example wanting to watch Netflix or wanting to eat a slice of pizza. These are things that you want to do and you are excited to do. Whereas there's things like doing the laundry or doing the dishes or getting up in the morning on Monday morning to go to work. These are things you kind of have to, and you most of the times don't really want to. They're not motivated to. And so and when you talk about motivation, I feel like motivation is something in between where it's like you need motivation to do things, and you then go ahead and do them. Otherwise your likelihood of doing them is really less. Like for example, working out, for example, is
Mm.
this is kind of relating to our first episode, Akshita. Working out is something that a lot of people want to do, but in the immediate short term, they don't have the motivation to do it. So many times, I'm guilty of this as well. you don't end up doing. So that's kind of where we're coming from. So, but let's dig deeper on like what you have to say on this, Mavis. You said that yeah, I mean, motivation is important to
Mhm.
you know, actually be able to do something consistently,
Yes, yes.
right?
Yes, I guess so. Yes, I mean, motivation is definitely very important, and because I think it's very dependable, because it means something profound, it means something deep that you can stick to when you feel tired, when you feel exhausted, when you feel a little bit disappointed by the reality, and then when you look inside, you still have that thing, your mind or deep down in your heart, that you can hold on to. So basically, I think this want to can be translated or interpreted to faith, or even to the belief or the thing that you want to achieve for your life, from my perspective. So it's not just like a casual thing or a entertainment thing that I want to do. So I really appreciate what you just mentioned, Anagh, because what you said is basically from the perspective of desire, like what I really want to do at this very moment, like what I intend to do at this very moment. Actually, I haven't thought about this because when I saw this topic for the first time, the first thing that popped up in my mind is about motivation. Yes. What about Ashta? What do you think about this topic?
Yeah, so for me, I think I tend to I'm more towards Mavis on this one. I definitely prefer want to or have to, because the word have to itself seems very constricting or limiting, versus want to for me sounds freeing. When you talk about I have to do something, it's something that, you know, it tends to sometimes discourage you, because it's something that you have to do because either society tells you to, or you're supposed to do it because it's the best or the easiest or the most positive way forward. Want to is something that is coming from within you. It's something that you are, as you said, personally motivated to do. That's why it's something that you want to do. It might not be the best, um, it might not be the easiest thing to do. It might not be something that's accepted. I mean, for example, if someone in India or Asian kids are known to be very academically oriented. But if somebody wants to go forward and say that, hey, I want to be an artist in India, at least, it's not the easiest way forward. But that want to is something that's getting from inside. Like it's something that's the person's enthusiastic about it, and not just pressured by people and has to or have to do math, science, anything. So for me, even though I don't personally follow it, it's not something I follow personally, but want to is definitely what I feel I should look forward to in the future.
That's a great point. So how do you understand motivation then, Anagh?
Okay, so according to me, motivation is so there are two things when you talk about motivation. This whole question of want to versus have to. One is we are talking about things like career decisions. For example, you know, choosing to do choosing a career path or one over the other, and there I feel motivation is extremely important. If you end up in a career, or if you end up choosing something where it's more of like I have to, like, you know, for example, accounting is a career that I personally feel is extremely boring. So or engineering as an undergrad discipline in India. I know, Akshita, we talked about this in that episode with Catherine, where in India it's like medicine or engineering are the two disciplines that you kind of have to take. And on those occasions, I feel motivation or interest or desire or faith, however you package it, is extremely important. But when it comes to, again, going to what we discussed in the first episode, when it comes to things which are long-term gain but short-term pain. So, for example, studying or exercising, where you want to do those things because you'll get gains in the future, but in the short term they give you pain. They're uncomfortable, like, you know, working out or studying. You'd rather be doing something else. In those situations, we have this mindset where we feel like, I'll do it when I get the motivation to do it. I'll study when I feel motivated to study, or I'll
Mhm.
work out when I feel motivated to work out. And on those occasions, I feel that you don't need motivation. You need discipline. It's kind of like uh, you know to become to become an Olympic athlete. You don't become an Olympic athlete because you first like if you want to become an Olympic athlete, you don't become a medalist and then you start training for it. You get disciplined, you start training for it, and then you get the medal. I'm kind of butchering the analogy a little bit. Let me look it up again. I messed it up the last time also. Yeah. So put in similar, you don't wait until you're in Olympic form to start training. You train to get into an Olympic form. So same thing with this whole thing of short-term pain, long-term gain. You start forcing yourself, kind of having to study or kind of having to exercise, and then when you start seeing results, then the motivation or faith or want kind of kicks in. That's kind of my perspective on it.
I think it's super interesting that you mentioned like workout or exercising, because it just reminded me that probably motivation is just, to some people, it's just an excuse of procrastination. Like when they say they need some motivation,
Yes.
they actually want to procrastinate, right? They don't really want to do it. Yeah. Yes, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, when you say motivation, it kind of means that there is an assumption that you need to be in a particular mental or emotional state as a prerequisite to before you can actually go ahead and complete that task, which
Mm.
I think is problematic. Your moods and your feelings should not be a variable in you achieving a goal which you know objectively is good for you. Does that make sense?
Right. Well, yeah, it makes some sense. It really makes some sense. I mean, especially for those people who are extremely rational. But like for me, honestly speaking, I consider myself as a highly emotional person. So that is the reason why I consider motivation as one critical part, like one crucial part for me to make any decision. When I think about my career path, like every single decision that I've made along the way, I used motivation, or I leveraged my motivation and my emotions as one of the means to guide myself to sort of like to pick the most promising role that I can take on. So like for example, I was basically a language major student for 6 years, because I spent 4 years studying French for my undergraduate days, and then I went to Newcastle in the UK for a master's degree in interpreting, and I got my first job in London as a conference interpreter. But then I decided that I have huge interest in the internet industry, so I relocated to Beijing, which means basically my hometown, and to find myself a job in a internet company, because I can feel the massive power of internet, or the irreversible ascent of technology, especially in China. And I feel that it's not because I've like read a lot of researches about this field. It's just that I can observe, and then I can sense, and I internalize all of my observations, and then I sort of transform what I saw, what I felt, into like a motivation, which drives me to find the suitable job opportunity for me. Yes.
Oh, that's impressive, Mavis. So yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you when it comes to things like, for example, your life choices, your career decisions. You went with your gut. You went with things that interested you. You left your job after spending 6 years studying it because you were interested in technology. In that respect, I 100% agree that you should do things that you want to do, things that in fact, right now, in my life, I'm at this sort of crossroads where I'm trying to figure out what is it that I really want to do, because I I don't know. It's either like I want to do everything or I don't want to do anything, that sort of a thing. But when it comes to this want to versus have to debate, my thing is only for activities or habits that you have established that is good for you, but because of uh, momentary lapses in your mood, you may not want to do it because you may not have the motivation, you procrastinate, like you said. in those respects, it's just almost like a mental hack, or a way of reframing things, where instead of saying that I need to feel motivated before I get down to study, or I need to feel motivated to work out, you just say that no, I don't care about motivation. I have to work out, or I have to study, and then you just go do it. So that is kind of where. So it's like this debate of want to versus have to can have multiple interpretations, and also the level and extent of the decision that we're talking about. So at a smaller level, I feel like I would want to go with have to, but obviously for things like life, career choices, or other things, like you would never want to choose a have to decision where you are stuck doing something because you have to. So I guess we're in agreement on what do you feel?
Yes. Yeah, I think what you said is really meaningful, because you just reminded me of the importance of have to moment. Like, for example, I don't have a habit of workout. So I guess in this sense, I really need to force myself to work out so that I can keep a very good physique. Like, I can keep a very fit and good figure, right? So yeah, this is a great reminder. But I have a question. So do you guys have some typical moments that you feel you really want this thing, or you really have to do this thing? Could you please maybe share a few like interesting stories that you can pick up as the representations of those have to and want to moments?
So I mean, even for the topics that we are talking about, I'll go first, actually. Like right now, I have an exam coming up in May, and there are moments where I really enjoy the topic that I'm studying, and I know that it's going to be valuable and a good addition to sort of my career, and I feel extremely motivated to do it, and I really want to study it, because it's literally things that I would be looking up on Google otherwise also. But then there are moments where my family is watching something on Netflix, or my friends are having a Zoom call, or a few people in the city that I know are going out for drinks, where I'd rather go do that instead of study. And there it's kind of more like have to. So it's the exact same thing, but based on what my mindset is, and also what else is going on in my life, it can vary quite significantly on the want to and have to spectrum.
What about Ashta?
Back a few years ago when I was in college, when I was in university, I really, really wanted to do this international volunteering experience through ISEC. I'm not sure if y'all are aware of ISEC, but I was really, really wanted to do it. But then that was also the year where it was in the third year of my undergrad, where it's suggested that you start looking for internships and you get some kind of work exposure and experience. So even though I really wanted to do the ISEC international volunteering thing, and I knew that that would stay with me forever because I was internally motivated and enthusiastic to do it, I still chose the have to route, where I chose that I have to do an internship. So I found an internship and I spent 1 month there interning, where honestly, like now, I hope nobody is listening to this. I would have learned more in the ISEC experience than I did in that 1 month. But yeah, so that's when I realized that if I felt that that excitement towards something, that internal intrinsic motivation towards something, I should have possibly gone for it, even though at that time everyone was telling me against it. Everyone was telling me you should get some work experience, you're going to graduate soon, you need to know what you're interested in, what kind of industry. But yeah, that's my small little example when it comes to this want to versus have to. And now when I look back, I really wish that I'd taken the want to perspective.
This is super interesting. It just means that sometimes the dilemma between want to and have to may cause some regrets, right? And this kind of like a regretting feeling is lasting even longer than the decision that we once made, right?
Yeah, but it's also a learning experience, because now when the next time such a situation comes ahead, I will always remember how much I wanted it and I did not get it and I felt bad about it. So the next time I might not make the same decision. So it's definitely a learning experience, anything you do.
Yes, that's great. That's a great experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually you added another sort of quote is that you regret inaction more than
Mm.
I feel like, for example, if you'd gone to ISAC and you realized that probably you should have spent the time looking for an internship, I mean, I'm sure that would have been a mistake. Like, if let's say all 99% of your classmates ended up getting an internship and a job, you would have felt that's a mistake, but that would have been corrected over time because you would have eventually found a job. But this was a regret of inaction because you didn't go to ISAC and you still think about it because you mentioned it. So I feel like that sticks around. That's basically what Mavis said. Yeah.
True.
So,
But then, Anna, what you just added, so it can work both ways. Like, even though I had taken that Isaac internship, that Isaac volunteering experience,
mhm.
I might have still regretted the fact that I did not go for an internship. I might have still thought that, hey, the internship or the job search would have been easier if I'd taken that internship or if I'd tried harder a year earlier. So we never know what we're going to feel until we're at that situation. So right now, I'm thinking of it in the perspective I was in. But if I had taken that, I never know how I would have
Mm.
felt. So it's this very funny. We don't know. We never know how it's going to be.
It's interesting. I actually
True,
have
true,
a
true.
similar experience, but I guess my feeling was totally different from Ashta's feeling because that was basically in the year 2014 when I got my first job as conference interpreter and project manager in a very small training agency in Linden. I was basically working full time. Like our working schedules were frenetic. It's just hysterical. Basically, we need to like stand all day and interpret for 6 hours in a row. And but I haven't finished my master's degree yet because at the end of the degree, after we submit our dissertation, we have a internship opportunity to the to the European Union to be one of those interpreter interns at European Union. But I basically gave up the opportunity to be a intern interpreter at European Union because I have to safeguard my employment opportunity in Linden. But when I look back, I don't feel regrets because I think I can obviously I couldn't have both, right? And I have to choose between this one or that one. And that one basically can guarantee me more possibility to maybe get a work permit in in United Kingdom, even though I decided to move back to China anyway. But so yeah, basically like before similar life situations, I'll try to weigh the importance of different like scenarios and decisions and try to figure out which is comparatively more important to me. And then if I made that decision, I will never regret. So I think to some extent it echo what Ashta just says. Like basically you need to try and the experience and stick to your decision and then just leave life as what it is. Yeah.
But in this example, Mavis, would you say that you went with the option that you had to rather than the one that you wanted?
Sorry,
The,
Anna,
the
please. I can't hear you clearly. Could you please?
Sorry, I
Uh-huh.
said in this example, do you think that the European Union internship was the option that you wanted to, and the
Hmm.
UK staying back in the UK was the option you had to choose, and you went with that because it just made sense in the longer term. So
That's it. Hmm.
basically, you went with the option that you had to versus want to.
Uh, well, that's a great question. I think both options back then meant something that I want, not something that I have to do.
Mm,
I don't think
yeah,
like
yeah.
I had to stay in the UK. I want to keep that job because I think that job
Mhm.
is meaningful or was meaningful at that specific moment. But after like half a year, I didn't think I could learn anything further from the job. So I quit and moved back to China. So basically, I think it's like a dynamic process that how we see different things in our life and how we make decision, right? Because people change, like their mindset change constantly. And we really don't know what we will think about an opportunity maybe the next day or the next year. So yeah, so I basically, as I said, I'm a highly emotional person. So basically, I'll just go with the flow, like go with how I feel about it at every specific moment. Yes.
Yeah. Now, see, later on things changed. That was fine, but like at that moment, uh, you probably would have gotten more diversity of experience by interning in the European Union as opposed to staying in the UK, where you'd been for the past at least a year or so. So in the short term, maybe the European Union would have been the option you wanted to, but in the long term, what you wanted was stability, and from that position. After all, later on things changed. So again, I guess what I'm trying to reconcile is that this have to thing is because uh, a lot of things you kind of have to do is because there are things you want, but they are slightly more longer term, so you don't think about them. Whereas want to things might be immediate gratification also at some point of time. For some things, they are long term gratification also, and you still want to do them. Like for example, career paths. You are the perfect example of that, where you've decided to start your own entrepreneurship journey. Now that's going to be a really long journey before you start getting the fruits of it, but you are quite motivated and that's what you want to do. So I mean, that logic does not always hold true, but for a lot of things I feel that if the gratification comes later, then it kind of becomes a have to thing as opposed to what you're thinking.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Yes. I never thought about this from this perspective, but what you said is actually quite philosophical, and it makes a lot of sense. Yes. What about you guys? What about your ideas of, like, let's say, delayed gratification or gratification of any other sorts? How do you see, like,
I
this?
have taken this kind of hard. Like now I do a lot of things where I don't actively want to do them, but I know that they're going to pay off in the long term, and that payoff in the long term is going to be more valuable to me than whatever is the alternative that is going to pay off in the short term. So it's been an extremely efficient, I mean, game changing sort of reframing and mindset change for me. So yeah, I believe in this 100% now. What about you, Akshita?
What about
I feel like Akshita is
yeah.
still on the I need to be motivated before I do something.
Yeah, I think I'm still there because I can't imagine myself do something that I don't like. I mean, I've done that a few times before and I've always regretted it because I didn't want to be forced to do something. Not forced, just not out of my own will or own motivation. I think motivation is what I really do strongly resonate with for this topic. So yes, I think I really do need that motivation to do anything. And when it comes to gratification or just satisfaction, I I'm conflicted because sometimes I feel like I want to go for something that gives me instant gratification because life is short and you should do what makes you happy. But then I've also grown up in a very long-term thinking kind of family where everything's planned and you always think about the future. So that's where my what Anagh said, that like eventually down the line, when it comes to long-term stability or when it comes to things that are good for you in the long run, that's important. So it's a conflicted state of mind. And for some situations in life, I definitely would like to look for instant gratification, which can be not major things like career changes or career paths. They can be hobbies or side hustles or etc. etc. But when it comes to career paths, I hope I do not go for instant gratification, and I hope I go for a planned and stable mindset going forward.
So I think we've kind of taken this discussion all over the place, but kind of coming back to the original topic that we started off. So yeah, one thing is for sure that when it comes to things that are, I mean, where the gratification or the value might come to your life later on, those things sometimes in the short term have to be reframed as a have to thing rather than a want to thing. Not always, but sometimes. But when it comes to sweeping life changing decisions, I think all three of us are in agreement that it should always be a want to. You should never make a major life decision which is kind of just doing things for the sake of doing, whether it is choosing a major in undergrad or taking up a job that you. Yeah. So
But then don't you think, Anand, that like
Uh,
generally, not within us, but generally, the have to, like, why a lot of people do things because they have to do things. Most of the people, at least around me, do that. So
mhm.
do you have, I mean, why do you think are the reasons where people take the have to route versus the want to route? Even though the want to gives you that gratification, that satisfaction, that happiness, etc., etc. Why do you think people take the have to route?
I think the first reason I can think of is risk appetite. So people generally take the more beaten path because it's less risky. And that can be seen in terms of like career choices also. So, for example, studying engineering and then working in IT is a less risky career path than taking up art or music and then trying to make it as a major artist or a musician in India. Or even what Mavis is doing with becoming an entrepreneur. I feel like working a job is a less risky option than starting your own business because there's higher risk. So many times I feel people end up choosing the easier in that sense route, even though that's not what they want. But I'd be interested in hearing what you guys feel. What do you feel, Mavis?
Yeah, I think maybe for some people, they, as Ashta has said, people feel that they are always doing things that they have to do because I just want to bring this motivation thing up again because I think for some people, they haven't successfully found their life mission or the internal calling. So they cannot, like, they absolutely have no clue, like, they have no idea. So we cannot blame them for that because they are innocent to a great extent. They need guidance, they need instructions, but somehow they are still exploring. But for people, on the other hand, who have successfully found their internal calling and their life mission, everything would be super easy, or everything would be comparatively easier, because what they will do, every decision that they make will be attached to the lifelong goal or the lifelong mission. Yes. So that is the reason why people may choose, like, where people can describe what they do as they want to do this or they want to do that, because they will, automatically or subconsciously, like, connect the thing that they're doing to their lifelong meaning, to their lifelong goal. I don't know whether it makes some sense to you guys, but I actually think when I see myself, I think like what I'm doing right now, even though it's much riskier than getting a stable job in a very good, like, Chinese internet company, I still think it's more significant just to me. I don't know whether it is significant to others, but at least it's very significant to me. Yes. Mm.
Yeah, I think I
No,
completely
I
agree
definitely
with.
agree with you, Mavis. I've
Yeah,
been.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, actually, you go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I completely agree with her because I did not think of, I mean, the fact that you said a lot of people are not able to find their internal purpose, and that's
Mhm.
why they do something. I
Mhm.
think that's something very common, at least what I've seen. When people don't know what to do, they just take the default route or the easier route. And when they dislike it, or when they feel like, hey, this is not what I'm interested in, they call it the have to route. They said, oh, I
Mhm.
had to take up engineering, even though at that point they had no other
Mm.
viable options in their head. So they just took the default one. So that's a good point that you just mentioned.
Yes. What do you think, Anag?
Yeah, that is very true. People go about living. I agree with you, Mavis. I feel like there's a big chunk of people that go about living their life in a sort of reactive way rather than proactively. And when you are reactive, you basically just keep doing things, going wherever life takes you in terms of education, career, and even smaller decisions.
Mhm.
And in that
Mhm.
kind of a scenario, since you're not proactively choosing to do anything, literally every single action you take kind of becomes a have to thing rather than a want to thing because you're not choosing to do anything. So that, yeah, that's a good viewpoint that I did not think of. But I am in agreement with you.
Mm.
And the entrepreneurship thing also, I feel that again goes back to my point about risk, because what you're doing is extremely ballsy. It takes a lot of gut to do that, and it's not like I personally have always wanted to do that, quit my job and work on a startup. And I felt that was an extremely risky, even though that is what I wanted to do, I found that to be extremely risky. And so I had to stay in my job. And so yeah, that risk aversion is also one of the reasons why people stick to safer options, which they don't necessarily want to do.
Right. Yeah.
I also think that there's a factor of, as I
Uh,
already mentioned, society. I mean, what the expected or like the normal way of life is. And then you, even though you want to do something else, you tend to, like, people tend to take the have to route because that's how it has been happening for many years, or that's what people expect you to do. That's what either your family, friends, any, etc., etc., expect you to do. So I think community plays a big part, or community or acceptance in society, or these norms that have been set in place. I think this also plays a big part in why some people choose the have to way versus the want to way.
Yes.
I
Makes a lot of
agree with you,
sense.
Akshita,
Yes.
but I feel like if you dig deeper, if you dig deeper on that point, you'd find that the reason for that is again going back to the two things we discussed. Because uh, there are norms in society, like for example, having to do engineering or even working a 9 to 5 job, getting married by X amount of age, having kids, all of that. Uh, People still choose to, like, people can choose not to do that and do something else, have an alternative lifestyle, but they're not able to do that for A, because they don't know what other options are there, what else they can possibly do. That goes back to what Mavis said about people don't know about, what options they have. They don't have the exposure, they don't have the training. And the other thing is risk. A lot of people don't want to betray the common path, or go against what society does, because they're afraid of the pushback they might get. So I mean, again, these two I feel are like the core foundational reasons. But yeah, that's again a manifestation of what you said about people just following societal norms and not choosing to break them.
True, true.
Okay.
Yes.
I feel like we've had an interesting discussion today. Is there anything else, like, we should begin to wrap up? Is there anything else you guys want to add to it before we summarize? Is there any points that we?
We are good. We can
Okay.
go ahead with the summary. I tried summarizing the last time and I just completely butchered it. So Anna can take it forward this time.
Okay. So, I mean, we started the discussion with defining the want to versus have to thing, where if you're, if you sort of put a spectrum of, having to do things which you don't feel like doing, like laundry or going to work in the morning on a Monday morning, is on one end of the spectrum. And then wanting to do things is things that you're motivated to do on the other side of the spectrum. And so first we talked about making life decisions in that respect, where you choose to do things that you want to rather than kind of have to. So like Mavis mentioned that um, she had a nice, I mean, she was working a nice job in the UK, and then she felt that she got whatever she could get out of it, so she left it and she moved back to Beijing, and she wanted to work in the internet industry and tech. So that was an example of choosing a want to rather than a have to, even though, like, from a risk or a comfort standpoint, probably staying back in the UK might have been the less risky option. The other way of looking at it is in terms of time horizon of gratification or value that you get out of something. So things that give you instant gratification, you want to do those things, whereas things that may take a while before the payoff comes in the short term, they might be painful or they might not be something that you want to do. Those things kind of get framed as a have to thing rather than a want to thing. Then we talked about reasons why people still do things that they have to, and why not just do things that they want to all the time. And the two key reasons we found was, one was people are risk averse, so they, I mean, sometimes doing the have to thing is actually, even though they might want to do the other thing, the have to thing is the less risky, easier option. And the other one is sometimes people just don't know what they want to do. They don't have the awareness, or they don't know what is out there. So they just are very reactive rather than proactive in terms of how they go about life. That's all I can think of. If there's anything I missed out, please feel free to add to that. Somebody.
I want to add one more point. I want to add one more. Sorry, I want to add one more point. I really appreciate Ashta's analytical insights in into instant gratification and delayed gratification. That's one of the parts that I enjoy the most during our discussion in the past hour. And I really appreciate how she analyzed instant versus delayed gratification. Yeah. So thank you, Ashta, for that part.
Thanks, Mavis.
Sweet. Okay. So let's move on to the final segment of the podcast, which is Akshita's favorite segment, the funny or insightful incident of the week. Navish, would you want to go first since you're the guest?
Oh yeah, of course. Actually, during the past month, I participated in a online cohort-based course called the Creator Economy course. Is initiated by one of the American angel investor called Lee Jin, and she's super popular on Twitter. Probably you guys can check it out later. Especially all her tweets, super meaningful and super insightful. And I just read just now, like literally just now, that she actually sold a piece of GIF, like moving picture, like a moving
NFT?
image, yes, for over $25,000, like NFT. And it was just like mind blowing. Like people are actually buying that art. Like people are actually obsessed with transactions like that. So basically, I guess till this moment we can't ignore like how popular an NFT can become in the future, and it should be the next big thing, or at least one of the next big things, right? Yes. So that's my interesting findings of this week.
Yeah, to piggyback
very
on
interesting. So I also this week.
Oh yeah, even I think I was like even I
Go ahead,
this week
Akshita.
I was introduced to the NFT. I didn't know what an NFT is before this week, and I was introduced to it this week itself from one of our cohort classmates itself, and I was amazed at the amount of money people spend on stuff like this. As you said, a moving image, you will never understand, but it is definitely seeming to be the next upcoming thing. So I was very interested because I had not heard of this concept before. And yes, I feel like this is something I want to explore, just explore at this point, but see going forward how it goes.
Yes, let's just stay tuned. Yeah. So what about you guys? What's your biggest
Insight?
Go ahead, and
Okay, let me first respond to the NFT thing. So I came across a website. I don't know if it's a social media website or it's a finance website, but it's called BitClout, where you can buy and trade social media influencers like you would trade stock. So like you have people who are, I'm sure the influencer that you were talking about, she probably has an account, and
yes, I know what you're talking
you
about.
can buy their stock on BitClout and then hold on to it, and as it appreciates, you can sell it on later. And I just like, and this whole thing is based off of like the blockchain technology, so it's like legit. You don't need like a full-fledged stock market and all of that you probably need for other things. So I mean, as a concept, I don't think I don't know how much it'll work out. I kind of feel like it's like Clubhouse, where people are excited about it, but it's not sustainable. But what I found interesting more was that the whole blockchain technology, whether it is with NFTs or this or other application, is like 2021 seems to be the year for blockchain technology to really get its time on the stage. So I am really excited for that.
What about Ashta?
Yeah, unfortunately, like almost all our podcast episodes, I do not have an insightful or funny incident, especially this week because I've been at home quite a bit. Anand, maybe you can go while I try to come up with something.
Okay.
Okay.
Putting you on the spot.
Okay. So again, insightful. Let's talk about NFTs only. So historically, when like I've really gotten into like art and art history in the past couple of years, and I've always wondered about what makes, maybe we can have this as a full-fledged podcast episode, but now it's like, what according to you values art? Like for example, the Mona Lisa as a painting, versus something that I would paint in like at home. Why is there so much difference in the value that the Mona Lisa is valued at or sold for? And there's this auction house called Christie's. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but basically anything expensive that is auctioned in the world is done by them. Uh, like you guys would have heard, there was a art painting called the Art Basel, where basically they've taken a banana and then duct taped it on a canvas, and that sold for like shit tons of money, and they'd auctioned that off. So I was like, I've always been amused about how the economics of like fine art works, and for historical things, there is value because there's only one. Like for example, if there was a famous painter in the 16th century, he's no longer there. Whatever paintings he's painted is finite. So because of their finiteness, there is value. But when you talk about modern artists who are coming up with truckloads every year, new artists are being born. How do you value their art, especially when they're living? Because they can always make more and they're alive. But this NFT thing has completely changed the game. I feel like NFTs are to auction houses what Uber was to taxis or what digital payments were to currency. So that is like, that's something that I've actually been studying up on, researching on, and I'll come back with more of my findings. But since we brought up the topic of NFTs, I feel like they're extremely exciting, and that again, I don't have any funny stories this week.
Yeah.
Anagh, you were so excited about NFTs. I think we should definitely have like a episode dedicated to this. I feel like you have so much to share. Yeah. I don't think I came up with any funny stories, but I can share a future hopeful plan that I want to do going forward versus I have to. I mean, very circling back to our topic. So I'm really, really wanting to like take a few weeks off work and get into this volunteering scheme at either reef board school or a surf club, because I mean I've never done this kind of experience before and I really want to take some time out to um, just cut off from like work and spend 2-3 weeks doing just this. So involves just I mean getting involved in different activities. So suppose it's the reef watch, then it's scuba diving or like biomarine for you just different marine life conservation, versus if it's a surf school then it's more about kayaking or surfing, etc., etc. So basically it's something that I've always wanted to do because I've never like, done any activities like this. But then again, like I have to work until June or July to complete the 2 years of my work experience. So I'm just like I was thinking of quitting beforehand, so that I hope this episode does not go out before I quit. Like, but anyways, no, that's fine. Yeah, but yes. So
Okay,
I was wanting
that
to.
was a funny episode.
Let's see.
Yes, great, Ashta. At least you have something that you really want. And at this very moment, I really want to have a successful study permit application. Like,
We all feel you right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
That's
true.
that's quite an interesting
Fingers
ending
crossed.
to this episode, right?
True, Mavis.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mavis. We really, really appreciate you taking the time out and joining us and having such an interesting discussion about this topic. And thank you, Akshita, for joining us, even though you were really, really ill running 100. So I appreciate you. I guess
That's
this
fine,
was
Anagh.
an example of hopefully you wanting to rather than having to.
Oh yes, this was a perfect
So-
example of a want to versus have to.
Mhm.
Good one. That's a good catch, Anand. Nice.
Yes.
And yes,
Um,
thank you so much,
uh,
Mavis. I mean, I think I like so the last segment generally for our podcast is we ask our guests how their experience has been. But I think Anak, this time we should ask advice and tips and experience as well. I mean, and advice and tips from Mavis on how our
Yeah.
podcast was. So yeah, I mean, thank you so much for taking out the time, Mavis. I understand that you were having a busy week and really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ashta and Anagh, for
Yeah.
inviting me. I feel super thrilled to have had this conversation, and I hope that we can have more conversation of this sort because I really want to exchange views with you guys on whatever topic it would be in the future. So let's just keep it going, and hopefully we will come up with more like coordinative episode in the future. Right? Cool.
Definitely, ma'am. So, how was your experience being on the Y coordinate? How on like since you are a professional podcaster, we'd love your feedback on
I
your
think
experience.
it's different. I mean, honestly speaking, it's totally different from my past experiences because basically I do podcasts with like mainly Chinese and sometimes Canadians or Americans, but this is very different experience, and I really value how you guys figure out different topics and how your thought process elaborates, and it's super meaningful to me. And I guess if maybe in the future, if we can sit down in one physical place to record, episodes together, that will be a better experience. Because obviously in China, I have very bad internet. Like there is a time lag. Like and the wall thing, the Great Firewall thing, and yeah. So, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm very sure. I'm definitely sure that in the future when we meet each other, we can have better recording experiences.
Lovely, ma'am. So I'm on board on that. We are definitely going to do this again in
Yes.
person.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you once again. Thank you, Akshita, and thank you to everyone for listening. I'm going to stop recording now.